This is the H-Pi Instruments Tonal Plexus keyboard. I'm one of the first owners. I've had it for a few years, but have not done as much with it as I'd like, but I'm going to get started with a demonstration video of what this thing is. Essentially, it's a keyboard in the style of a traditional piano, but it has far more keys. The standard keys are basically in the center, and you have your standard black and white layout like a normal piano. You can play major scale on the white keys like this. But I have sharper and flatter versions of each note in these columns. So this is a C, and here's a sharper C, and here's a flatter C. So like a fretless instrument, or a slide trombone, or a human voice, I can access basically any pitch. Now it's not as smooth a connection and not quite as fluid as those other instruments, but I can more specifically access exact notes whenever I want, and combinations of notes that would take many people all at once to get, and probably not even get that accurate on if they were all singing. Now that major chord that I'm playing right now, you notice this note is a little bit flatter than a traditional centered keyboard pitch, which would sound like this. And it has some activity, it sounds kind of busy, it's a little more restless. And the pure tone down here, which matches the harmonic series and is an exact harmonic ratio, nice and pure. Not necessarily better or worse, they're just different. So depending upon what my musical goal is, I can get that. If you want the activity and the busyness, I can even use a couple pitches right next to each other all at once and get sort of a chorused sound. And then I can choose to just stick to the harmonic ones. The tuning is based on a Pythagorean system. So you have a perfect fifth here, that's the big buttons. And because a perfect 2:3 ratio Pythagorean fifth is a little bit sharper than tempered, as I go through a circle of fifths, it goes a little bit sharper diagonally up the keyboard. I'll do that again here, so. And where I ended up and where I started. And they're not quite an octave, it's a comma apart from each other. So each big button is one comma apart. And then if you cycle around 41 times, that's a 41 note per octave system for the big buttons. Multiply by 5, you have 205 pitches per octave. And the entire keyboard of 6 octaves with a couple overlapping keys is 1,266 buttons. Which is a lot to think about, but the patterns are pretty easy once you get used to them. So this is a major chord, and this major chord is going to be a major chord wherever I play it, anywhere on the keyboard. It doesn't really matter. It's unlike a traditional piano. I don't need to use different fingerings and learn different shapes for different scales. Every scale, every major scale, every chord is going to feel the same, even though the visual layout is different, black and white keys. Like a normal piano. One demonstration I like to do is to show that I can actually play a melody inside one half step. So here's a C, here's a flatter C, here's a sharper C. After hearing it a little bit, you get used to those notes. You can build up sort of a mental category. I'm thinking of this as the high note, and this is sort of the low one, and this is the center that I'll come back to and resolve. What's happening is, by getting familiar with these pitches, we develop new categories. People can only remember so much, so most scales use upwards of around 7 pitches, give or take a few. So if I did this much in every column, it would easily overload most people's memory, and we wouldn't be able to keep track of it all. But by picking a few notes here, we can still get used to them. And if I have a harmonic blend, I can play a drone in the background here, and then play. You can hear that this one blends, this one does not as much. And after getting used to those pitches, consider that the smallest interval you have on a traditional keyboard is actually quite large. That sounds like a leap to me after getting used to these pitches. So there's a lot of options, and this keyboard can be used to play ethnic tunings or novel new tunings or harmonic chords or purposefully out-of-tune chords. So there's a lot of options, and I can use all the theoretical, mathematical calculations that I want, but if I want to just play and use my ears, it's all there to just explore.